Alright, so take out your homework, check your answers from last night. This one you just had to identify what type of angles they are. So check your answers. If you need, okay, you're confused on something, star it so we can come back when I get back. Alright, same thing, just label or identify which type of angles these are. Okay, these ones just identify what type of angle they are. Okay, a little review on segments, planes, skew, all that weird stuff we did yesterday. Notice the segments that are skew to DC, there's a lot of them. You know, skew is just not on the same plane, they don't intersect. And these last ones, alright, so we're on day 3, parallel lines and transversals. We're going to kick it up a notch. So yesterday we just identified which ones are corresponding, alternate exterior, stuff like that. Now we're going to actually do some calculations. So get out your notes, day 3. I'm not going to have you rewrite that long definition again. So we're just going to summarize it here. But get out your notes. Alright, so corresponding angles. That just means they're in the same position. We also know they're congruent. So take a look at our picture up here. We're going to circle which ones are corresponding. So same position as 1 would be number 5. So we know that angle 1 is congruent to angle 5. Okay, we got some more corresponding angles. Let's look at 2. Which one of these is in the same position as 2? Down you look. That'd be 6. So we know that angle 2 is congruent to angle 6. We got some more. Let's look at 4. What's in the same position as 4? Okay, that come down here. That'd be angle 8. So angle 4 is congruent to angle 8. And then finally, look at 3. Same position would be angle 7. So angle 3 is congruent to angle 7. Okay, so corresponding, same position, congruent. Let's look at alternate exterior angles. Alternate meaning opposite sides of your transversal. Exterior meaning outside of your parallel lines. We know that they're congruent. So let's take a look. We're looking for opposite sides of our transversal. It has to be outside of our parallel lines. So let's, okay, 1. We have to go outside the parallel lines and on the other side of the transversal. So 1 and 7. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 7. Okay, if we look at 2, we have to go outside of our parallel lines and on the opposite side of our transversal, which is 8. So angle 2 is congruent to angle 8. Make sure you write which angles are congruent so you know that they are corresponding up there, their alternate exterior on that one. So corresponding, same position, congruent. Alternate exterior, opposite sides of the transversal, outside of your parallel lines, congruent. All right, we got our alternate interior angles. Alternate, opposite sides of the transversal. Interior meaning inside the parallel lines. We know they're congruent. So let's take a look. We need inside of the parallel lines, so in here, and opposite sides of our transversal. So number 4, okay, what's going to be opposite is number 6. So we know angle 4 is congruent to angle 6. Here we got another set, interior, and on opposite sides of our transversal, which would be 3 and 5. So we know angle 3 is congruent to angle 5. Okay, so alternate interior. Opposite sides of transversal, inside your parallel lines. Congruent. Consecutive interior. Okay, consecutive is the same side of your transversal. Interior, inside the parallel lines. We know they're going to add up to 180. They are supplementary. So let's figure out which ones are consecutive interior. So we are inside of our parallel lines and on the same side of our transversal. So 3 and 6. And we know they are supplementary. So the measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 6 equals 180. Okay, we have another set of consecutive interior. They're just on the other side. So interior, inside our parallel lines, and on the same side. So 4 and 5. We know they're supplementary, so they add up to 180. So the measure of angle 4 plus the measure of angle 5 equals 180. Right. Alternate interior, alternate opposite sides of the transverse. Interior, inside of your parallel lines. They're congruent. Consecutive interior. Okay. Consecutive, same side of the transversal. Interior, inside your parallel lines. They are supplementary. They add up to 180. Okay. This is our first little theorem. Okay, so the perpendicular transversal theorem. If a line is perpendicular to one line, okay, if it's perpendicular to this line right here, so here's our transversal, if that's perpendicular to this line, these two are parallel, if it's perpendicular to this line, then it's going to be perpendicular to every line that is parallel to our first one. Okay, so we have another line that's parallel to this one. It's also going to be perpendicular and form a right angle. If we had another one down here, this just keeps going and going. This would all be perpendicular. So if it's perpendicular to one line, it's perpendicular to every line that is parallel to our first line. So make sure you write down this theorem. And just to review, supplementary angles add up to 180. Vertical angles, the opposite angles, are congruent. So, we got a problem here. There's our picture. 4 little sub-problems. I want you guys in your groups to try A through D. Make sure you label this stuff. I also want you to label which ones are consecutive, interior, corresponding, all that stuff. So label or identify all that stuff, and then find the measure of each angle. So in your groups, work on these 4. All right, so let's go over these. We know that the measure of angle 2 is 65 degrees. So this angle right here, 65 degrees. We need to find angle 1. Now hopefully you recognize that this is a corresponding angle. They're in the same position. So the measure of angle 1 is 65 degrees because they are corresponding angles. Here it says tell which postulate you used. This is the postulate. So this is 65 because they're corresponding angles. Okay, number 4. We're looking for this angle. Okay, there's a couple ways you can do this. These 2 angles form a straight angle. They're a linear pair, which means they add up to 180. So to get angle 4, you would do 180 minus 65, which is equal to 115 degrees. Okay, because they are a linear pair. Okay, another way you could have thought of this is that angle 3 is supplementary to angle 1, and angle 3 and angle 4 are alternate exterior angles. So linear pair with angle 2, or alt exterior angle to angle 3. Both reasons work. Okay, angle 5, right here. You should recognize that that is a vertical angle. So angle 5 is going to be 65 degrees because it is vertical to angle 2. when you tell which postulate, you have to say which, this is vertical to 2. This is corresponding to 2. This is a linear pair with 2, or it's an alternate exterior to 3. Okay, we look at angle 3. We know that it forms a linear pair with angle 1, or it's alternate exterior to 4. Either way, it's going to be 115. Okay, it's a linear pair. Forms a linear pair with 1. Linear pair with 1, or alternate exterior to 4. And you could do, there's a couple different justifications for your answer. Alright, so we're going to assume they're parallel, and to write that they're parallel, we use these double arrows. Same thing over here. Double arrows. We have to find x. So first off, what kind of angles are these? Okay, they are inside your lines, your parallel lines, and on the same side as the transverse. So these are consecutive interior angles. And we know that these are supplementary. So we know these add up to 180. So what we're going to do is we're going to add them up and set them equal to 180. So you get 5x minus 25 plus 3x plus 5. That equals 180. Okay, we just added the angles, set them equal to 180 because they're supplementary. So we go through combined like terms, you get 8x. Negative 25 plus 5 is minus 20. 180. 8x is 200. So to get rid of that, you divide by 8. And finally, you have x equals, okay, should equal 25. Right, x equals 25. If I asked you to actually find the angles, what you would do with this 25 is you would plug it in to the x if I wanted you to find the angle. But I just wanted you to find x, so you stop right here. Okay, let's take a look at this one. What kind of angles are these? Okay, they are opposite sides of the transverse and outside of your parallel line. So these are alternate exterior angles. Now, what do we know about alternate exterior angles? We know that they are congruent. And what does it mean for two angles to be congruent? Okay, that means they are equal. So what we do is we set these equal to each other. So you have 7 x minus 19 equals 84. Okay, so to solve for this, you divide by 7. X minus 19 is equal to, let's see, 84. You get 12. So solve for x, you add 19. X is equal to 31. So if I ask you to find the actual angles, you would just take the 31. Ooh. You would take 31, plug it right there, or you could just know that they're equal, so it should be 84 total. Alright, so you guys in your groups, a couple minutes, try 5 and 6. Identify what type of angle they are. If they're congruent or supplementary, set them equal or add them up equal, set them equal to 180. Okay, same thing with 6. Except 6 you have to actually find the angles. So a couple minutes in your groups, 5 and 6. All right, so let's go over 5 and 6. Okay, first thing you have to do is identify what type of angle relationship there is. So you'll notice, okay, they're on opposite sides of the transverse and on the outside of your parallel line. So they are alternate exterior. Alt exterior angles. Now what we know about those is that they are congruent, which means they have the same measure. We can set them equal to each other. So all you do is you do 3x plus 5 equals 4x minus 29. Okay, so since they are alternate exterior angles, we know they're congruent, so we can set them equal to each other. So we want to solve for x, so we subtract 3x from both sides. So you get 5 equals x minus 29. Add 29 to both sides, you'll get x equals 34. Now, it just says find x, so we're done. But if it said find the angles, you would just plug this x in into your angles. Okay, so the important thing to do is identify what type of relationship it is, and then figure out if it's congruent or supplementary. So we have to find A and B. To do that, it's going to be a little tricky. We know these two are both interior, okay, inside of our parallel lines, and on the same side of your transverse. So they're consecutive interior angles. Now we also know that this angle right here forms a linear pair with A. We know that this angle right here forms a linear pair with B. So these are supplementary, and these are supplementary, and then these guys are supplementary. So what we need to do is we need to find Y so that we can find these two angles. So we know these two are consecutive interior angles and they are supplementary. So they're consecutive interior angles. We know they add up to 180. So let's add them up. 4y minus 5 equals 3y, whoopsie. 4y minus 5 plus 3y plus 10 equals 180. Combine like terms, you get 7y plus 5 is 180. Move the 5 over, subtract, 7y, so 175. To get y, you just divide by 7, and y is going to equal 25. So once you know that these are supplementary and you set up your equation, it's just algebra. Okay, you got to solve for y. All right, so now that we have y, we're going to plug it in there. So our first angle right here, you have 4 times 25 minus 5, which is 100 minus 5. So this angle right here is 95. Let's plug it in here. We have 3 times 25 plus 10, which is really 75 plus 10, which is 85. So 85 is here. 95 is that angle. So we now know that this whole thing is 95 degrees. We also know that this thing is supplementary. So it adds up to 180. So to find angle A, okay, we know that angle A plus 95 equals 180. Which means that the measure of angle A is going to be 85. Okay? These two form a straight angle. They're a linear pair, so they equal 180. So if this is 95, this has to be 85. Okay, now to find B, we know that this angle is 85, and these two form a linear pair. They're supplementary. They add up to 180. So we know that the measure of angle B plus 85 equals 180. Solve for measure of angle B. The measure of angle B is equal to 95. Okay, if you don't want to do the supplementary way, you can recognize that this is alternate, okay, interior with this guy, and then this guy is alternate interior with this guy. So these are going to be congruent, and those are going to be congruent. Okay, so you could do it the supplementary linear pair way, do the alternate interior angles. They both work. You notice, this guy was 95, and B is also 95. We know this guy was 85, and A was 85. Okay, so these two are congruent, they're equal. These two are congruent, they're equal. Okay, one last problem. 7th Avenue runs perpendicular to 1st and 2nd Street. However, Maple Street makes a 130-degree angle with 2nd Street. So it's labeled right here. We have to find what angle 1 is. Okay, so what I would start doing is labeling all your angles. So we know this one is corresponding to this one, same position, so this is 130. All right. We know that this and this form a linear pair, so it has to be 180. So the total has to be 180. This is 130, which leaves 50 right there. Okay, we know this one and this one are alternate interior, so they're congruent. Or you can think of it as this one and this one are vertical, so they're congruent. Or this one and this one form a linear pair and are supplementary. Either way, it's 130. This one and this one are vertical, so they're congruent. Or these form a linear pair. Or these are consecutive interior angles. There's many ways to fill out a diagram like this. Many different postulates you can use. So to find number 1, you can use the corresponding postulate. So 50 is corresponding to 1, so this should be 50. So measure of angle 1 equals 50 degrees because they are corresponding angles to 50 degrees. Or you could say that it is consecutive interior to 130. Or you could say supplementary to this 130. Or you could say it's alternate interior to this one. So you could say it's alternate interior to 50. Okay, there's multiple ways you could figure out that it's 50. Now you have a lot of tools in your toolbox for these types of diagrams. Okay, so if you have any questions, make sure you write them down so that you can ask them to me when I get back and we go over them. Okay? If you have any questions, make sure you write them down or something so that you don't forget them.